What? An enjoyable preseason game? Yeah. The Seahawks and Browns gave us some fireworks here in what's been a preseason period that's been pretty much a snooze fest across the league. A lot of 16-13 type games. Well, not here. You got yourself a bit of a barn burner. The Seahawks able to edge out the Browns 37-33 in a fun game with a lot to kind of pick through and look at, considering it is a preseason game and the final one at that. Started out with your Seahawks finally for the first time starting out your starters on the offensive side of the ball. Well, yeah, the defense got themselves a nice quick stop, but then all of the eyes were on that offense. How would Geno look, who's not played this preseason, and DK, much of the same, in this new Ryan Grubb offense? Would they take to it quick? Would it just look awesome from the start, as many of us were hopeful that it would? And the answer was, yeah, pretty awesome from the start. Now it's one drive. I'm not going overboard here, but it was an awesome drive at that. First up, you've got Geno doing what he does, which is recognizing the blitz more often than not. It's a place I've lauded him for the last couple of years in this way, is that he sees it coming. The Seahawks protections have not always been the best the past couple of years. That's a little bit having to do with the schematics and how they have that set up and the lack of adjustments built at times to deal with those stack boxes and blitzes. But Geno recognizes the blitzes and more often than not has an answer for it. He showed you on that Jackson Smith and Jigba route that he ran, which was a little bit of almost kind of a skinny post there, a little skinny 9 route, I guess I better call it. And what you have there is a blitz on the play where Geno recognizes the blitz is coming, and that then instructs him that he's going to have JSN one-on-one on the outside. And then he's going to trust JSN to win that matchup like Jackson did, making a big-time catch over the top. A couple plays later, the Seahawks go empty. No running backs in the backfield. The Browns counter it with a single high safety on the top side of things. The Browns also go press coverage on the outside. So Geno comes up to the line of scrimmage, recognizes the safety, recognizes the press coverage, and he knows, much like with Sam Howell last week on the 9 route he threw down near the end zone, that if that safety is not going to run like hell over to DK, if he's not going to bracket him up post-snap immediately, if he starts to wander a little bit to the right post-snap, or if he just kind of holds into place, DK is going to get up the sideline to his spot before that safety can help that corner out. And that corner's in press coverage, and he is not going to be able to run with DK. Certainly not run with DK comfortably. DK is able to get the top of the defense taken off, high points the ball, cornerback falls down, touchdown. Geno was absolutely marvelous on that first drive, 4 of 5, 62 yards. He had another play where they were able to get some penetration into the backfield really quickly, some fast pressure on top of Geno. He was able to slightly evade the first guy for just a moment to allow Kenny McIntosh to run his route and then barely get the ball out of his hands at an awkward angle and still complete the pass. Geno was great. He has looked marvelous throughout training camp. I saw it in person. You've heard report after report that he's looked like a star in camp, and I still do maintain we're going to see the best version of Geno Smith this upcoming season. The best version we've ever seen in the NFL, and by far. And that should just take the top of the Seahawks potential that much higher. As far as the rest of the offense is concerned, the two quarterbacks were okay. I thought Sam Howell played actually really good. The stats didn't quite bear out, I think, how well he did play. He had a 9 route throw to White on the outside, which was just a thing of beauty, where he threw the ball up. He puts it where you want those 9 route throws to those bombs to be, where you put it out in front of the receiver and you let the receiver run underneath it, rather than sort of putting it back on them where they've got to stop and let the corner kind of catch up to them. Put it right out in front perfectly, allowed him to make the catch and make the run in for a touchdown. Unfortunately, rookie Christian Haynes got called for a hold on the play, and that nullified it. But I thought Sam was smart in his decision-making, and I thought that he's gotten kind of incrementally better throughout this preseason period. Early on in training camp, it looked really rough and tough, and I think that there was probably a little bit of residual damage there from his time with the Commanders and all of those hits he took and just the environment he was in there. I've always said you want to be very careful with these young quarterbacks and the type of environment that you put them in, because if you put them in that kind of bad one like that, it can build those bad habits, or you can kind of get them not drawn into a shell of themselves, but just that they're not feeling fully free and confident in how they're executing the position. And I thought that Hal in this game and how he's gotten bit by bit better in this realm really was doing a good job of being in control and in command for the most part back there today, even though the stats don't terribly bear this out on that side of it. Walker looked rough like he looked kind of rough last week. He just looks a little bit in over his head at time, a little bit unsure of what he's seeing. He's not a real reader prior to the snap as to what's going on. He's more of a reactor, and that can lead him into some troubled waters at times. He had a real bad interception that was luckily called back due to a flag on the play, but he just didn't look very comfortable back there. He wasn't bad, just didn't look really all that comfortable. The receivers for the Seahawks all continue to show out really well. It doesn't matter the guy that you want to name. Everybody comes in and does their part. You don't have somebody who has a lot of bad drops or anything like that. I think, in fact, we had just one drop in this game. But all of the guys did their part early on. DK, JSN holding up. Winston Easop Jr. continues to catch everything you throw at that guy. Laviska Shenault continues to show you the role that's going to be carved out for him in this offense. You need in the NFL now this modern day gadget guy, Swiss Army knife, the receiver that can have running back like traits. It's a very specialized kind of position, and not many of these guys are out there, by the way. They're not a dime of the dozen. Everybody wants to go say, give me my Deebo Samuel every draft, but they're not always that easy to go and find. And Laviska is exactly that type of guy. And Grubb is showing you throughout this preseason period, in every single preseason game, that he knows how to use this kind of gadget guy. Manufacture touches, and off the back of that manufactured touches, you're going to get very good production. Is it going to be eye-popping, 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing? No. But is it going to be really efficient production that's going to help this offense and force defenses to have to account for it? Yeah, you better believe it. He's been really good there. The guy that was theoretically kind of competing for him in that gadget guy role, Eskridge, had maybe his best pure game as a pro all the way around. Is a guy that just cannot stay healthy, even dinged up in this camp so far. Came out on a punt return. It's clipped deep into the Seahawks territory. He's drawn over the far left sideline, makes the catch of that left sideline. He's almost got his foot touching the out-of-bounds marker. He's that far to the left side. Reverses his field all the way back across, turns on the afterburners, shows off that quickness, speed, and explosion that he possesses all three. And I don't even know if he was touched on his way to getting to the end zone. He shows you some of that dynamicism. Can't say the word, but he has it in him. And that's part of the reason that the Seahawks have had the faith that they've had him in as a player and thinking that he can eventually realize this. I don't know if he makes the roster at this point. Might just be too much of a numbers game for him, but he did all he could in this game, including getting a catch, having a nice little bubble screen that he got up the field for a first down. So he did what he could in this game to try to show out in his way. And who knows? Maybe John Schneider is even trying to look to feature him a little bit and have him as maybe a little bit of that trade bait. He's thinking, hey, I'm hot here on the trades of Michael Barrett this last week, as you were able to bid him into house on a trade and a flip for Michael Jackson, guy that wasn't likely to make the roster. He did the same with Darrell Taylor, getting something for him. Maybe he's thinking the same thing here for Eskridge. Maybe I can pick up a 6th, 7th round pick for this. Who knows? But still fun to see Eskridge getting going, and you can see that the players were really rooting for him and feeling good that he was able to actually do something in this game, a guy that's had some real tough luck when it's come to injury. It's not necessarily all been just his fault on this. Some guys just get battered and bruised at a higher rate than other guys, and you're just snake bitten. There's not a lot you can do about it. The running backs, or at least the running backs we're most worried about, showed out as well. Last year, the man that they called the blueprint, Kenny McIntosh, missed the whole season due to an injury. And this was really disappointing, not only because he's a very talented guy, because many of us thought he was a 7th round steal in last year's draft. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. I don't know if that is a thing, but we're going to make it a thing because he is that. And he showed you that today. Had the one catch that he made from Geno Smith where Geno was under pressure, like I had said, but then he also had the one carry he was given in this game, and he made the most of it. A 56-yard run where he showed you some of what he brings to the table. First, that nice burst to get through that hole. That defensive tackle could only get kind of a single hand on him as he's busting through the hole. Then he gets out ahead. He's got a little bit of space to work with. The defensive backs rallying up on him. Gives him a little bit of what Marshawn Lynch would call
just a little baby step for him.
And then hit the Jets and housed it. Kenny McIntosh has been good in every single one of these preseason games, and he's showing you what he brings to the table, and he has solidified himself in that third down back, not role, but third down back in the pecking order, because this is a very deep running back room. All the more deeper by George Hulani, who himself had a great game. 7 carries, 38 yards, 5.4 yard per carry average, and he ran hard, and he got through tackles in the backfield. There's multiple times this game where Hulani had multiple guys penetrating into the backfield as he's getting the handoff, able to navigate around that penetration in the backfield and still then get it upfield. In one case, he turned it into the most magnificent half-yard run you've ever seen. In other cases, he was able to actually get some legitimate yardage. But this kid has some talent in addition to that. This kid is also a guy that you didn't draft, but was maybe the most sparkling of your undrafted rookie free agents that you brought in. And what you see in McIntosh and what you see in Hulani is more of what I've kind of thought and suspected coming into this training camp, that the Seattle Seahawks for the 2024 season will be trotting out this season, I believe, the strongest running back room 1 through 4 that they've ever had in their history. Make of that what you will, but I think that that's only been more solidified throughout this preseason period by what we've seen, and it's going to be a big part that this team can lean on, as we saw in this game, both in how they run the ball and how they catch the ball out of the backfield. Defensively, it was a little bit more of a mixed bag. Certainly more good, I think, than bad, even though you did give up 33 points. Some of this is you getting into the depth of your roster, and guys that were kind of at the heart of the reasoning of you giving up those points are guys that are not only not going to be on the roster, but not on the practice squad. But there were still some other things that you're just a little discouraged by in what you saw. I think overall the defense did play good, and they had a couple of moments in this game where they could have put this game to rest a lot sooner, if not for maybe some undisciplined play, a bad penalty at a wrong time. For instance, you have a great play where we got to see a little bit of a flavor of Mike Macdonald's defense where he runs a stack box to one side of the line of scrimmage on the offense. The quarterback freaks out, sees it, adjusts his protection to where the stack box is at, to one side of the offensive line, and then post-snap, Mike Macdonald drops those defenders into coverage on that side and brings the blitz from a completely different side. Completely surprises the Browns. They didn't see it coming. The quarterback freaks out. He throws the ball to the first receiver he can find, which is in front of the sticks. It's going to be a third down stop. Boykins makes a great play, hits the receiver, tackles him, gets up, and just starts getting right down in his face and barking in his face and talking his trash. And he stays on it, and he stays on it, and there's a flag for intimidation and a penalty and taunting. And I don't like those flags any more than you guys do. But we know that that's going to be called every time, and he was basically daring the officials to call it there. That gave them a free first down. The Browns then hit a 50-yard play over the top like a play or two later. But you had the stop, you had him done right there, and you kind of gave it to him on that one. Similarly, later on in the game, they had a fourth down stop, keeping the Browns out of field goal range. But Sharif had a roughing the penalty passer called on him on the play, and it ended up getting nullified on a play where Tyrese Knight, by the way, really made a nice play in coverage. Tyrese Knight, again, building on two of his prior performances here in preseason, and who's had a pretty good training camp by all accounts, continue to play well in this game, continue to show you he can be good against the run, and he can be good against the pass. The inside linebackers in general in this game, I think you can kind of go down the line on all of them and find good moments in this game from everybody, including Patrick O'Connell, who might be a guy right on that bubble here to making that roster, but he did everything he could and has probably done everything he can in this preseason to kind of hopefully try to solidify a roster spot. But that numbers game with Michael Barrett coming in that trade this prior week probably still sees him end up getting clipped, but he was really good in coverage. He was really strong as a tackler in this game, and maybe he's even done enough to push John Radigan. We'll just have to see. That's part of the fun of cut down day and how that all play out. But we do get to feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy, I suppose, about the depth of the inside linebacker position, as when we were coming into training camp, many of us were worried at the biggest, most hearty concern we had was in regards to that depth, especially as you walked into camp with both Dotson and Baker, your de facto starters, kind of dinged up and just, oh man, is this going to get thin quick is kind of some of the worry there. But the inside linebackers were pretty good in this game. Your defensive front did okay for the most part. They created some pressure throughout the course of this game. Mike Morris was again active throughout this game, playing inside, outside. Jamie Sharif, this kid, undrafted rookie free agent. You talk about a guy who maybe has forced his way onto the roster. I think you could probably say that here about Sharif. With Taylor gone, it comes down to him and Nelson Cesar, and I'd be hard-pressed to wonder how you wouldn't keep him on the roster now over Cesar by how he's played. He just about makes you feel like he's fighting for his life every snap on when he's trying to get to the quarterback, and that he's going to give you everything he's got. There's a phrase coaches like to use. He's a rolling ball of knives off the edge. And it's a little bit of a visual that it draws in your mind if you think about it. It's not that they're coming at you with some super sweet hand swipe move or Euro step. It's that they're just this constant motion and energy and hands whipping and snapping and fighting off you and trying to scream to the edge and doing everything they can, giving you every last ounce of effort to try to get to the quarterback. And that's something that you do feel from Sharif, and I've got to feel like probably does resonate with the coaches and might very well get him a roster spot here. The corners and safeties, I thought, had a little bit more of a tougher, longer day. Now, look, the Browns had a lot of plays out on this football field. You had the punt return, and you had some quick drives as well in there on that side of it. So they were really at times feeling like they lived on the football field, and that accumulated more plays for them, more attempts for them. But the two Auburn corners are worth noting coming out of this game. Nehemiah Pritchett has really come on throughout training camp in the preseason period, and he again looks strong today. He might have given up 3 catches in this game, but it was probably given up for a cumulative like 15, 16 yards. And what's nice to see with him today in this game was that the tackling really did come forward today. His guy caught it. He brought him down instantly on the catch. Good to see from him. That's one of the main question marks you have with him, similar to his former Auburn teammate, DJ James. James had a sequence of plays here in this game, in the first half especially, where he was locked and on it and looked like his best version of himself here throughout his early time here in Seattle. It got a little bit rougher in the second half, gave up a couple of plays, including a crossing route in the back of the end zone where he wasn't even close on coverage, and it looked like man coverage at that. It didn't look like a blown zone coverage. It looks like he's got to carry that guy all the way through by the coverages that they were running there. But you just hope this kid will grow with time. He is a rookie, and there's going to be those rookie moments, especially when they're in their first action. So I don't know if both those guys will make the roster, or not necessarily. I think Pritchett's probably a shoo-in to make the roster at this point. Maybe a little bit more question with DJ James, though we did see the guy who was probably fighting it out with Artie Burns go down to a little bit of an injury here early on in this game. They were 34 of 51 for 292 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, cumulatively from the quarterback position, and if you're the Seahawks defense looking at that, it's not a good day. Again, though, going back and looking at who gave up those completions, when in the times of the game you were giving up those completions, I think that we more kind of can track that onto kind of more of those 4-stringers and more of those real back-end roster guys that were giving up those plays. And so not as much there to maybe be as concerned about on that front of it. I think the Browns have done a good job of making sure that they have also pretty good 3 functional quarterbacks behind Deshaun Watson. Tyler Huntley's a hell of a third to have. You could make an argument I'd rather have Huntley maybe even over Walker. So he's also a guy that can get it done on that side of it. He showed you that in this game and how he played the position. Thought all 3 quarterbacks held up pretty well for that Browns team, and then they did their job on that side of it. But it says something in a game like this where you can be outgained by over 100 yards. You can have an offense that's got like 67 plays to your 45 plays. You can be 0 for 8 collectively between 3rd and 4th downs. Didn't convert 1 third down in this game, yet you still come out of this game with a pretty easy win, and it could have been even easier. It's preseason. These don't count for anything. But if this was going to be rough with Mike Macdonald, if this was going to be an early bumpy road of learning the ropes for a first-time head coach, I think we would start to see at least some of that evidence have shown up here throughout training camp, throughout these preseason games. And instead, he looks cool, cold, calculated, and locked in. And this team looks similarly so. We won't know until we get to the live games. It is preseason. But so far through this period, in this early onboarding process, it's been very smooth by all accounts. And I'm feeling nothing but more encouraged for this upcoming season for the Seattle Seahawks. Not to take away anything from a finality standpoint on these preseason games, but just to say we're not seeing those bumps or those problematic areas showing up that might then rear their ugly head then once we get to the regular season. If anything right now, everything is looking like it's getting well calibrated and set here for this upcoming year. Both in the case of Grubb's offense and McDonald's defense, you haven't even begun to see the full arsenal of what they are going to bring to bear. Most of this preseason defensively, McDonald kept those 4-man fronts, very few stack boxes. And when you did get to see the stack boxes, it had maximum impact then the second that he did do it. So that's going to come a lot more into play. Really, a lot of the benefits you saw from this preseason on that defense and why they were at times so stifling was the mixing up of the coverages on the back end. But you're pairing up the mixing of the coverages with the stack boxes, maximum impact. You're not going to get that till game 1. Similarly with Grubb, didn't see a lot of screen plays in this game. You got the bubble screens, but there are no tunnel screens. There's no running back screens. Understanding he's going to lean on that about once every probably 7 plays when we get to the regular season. No trick plays. I think he's just giving you just a little slice of what he's going to bring into this as well. And so both of these guys, and just giving you a slice of what they bring to bear, has been pretty successful in this preseason period for your Seattle Seahawks. And that should get you very encouraged for the upcoming year. On the special teams side of it, Dixon did his job as he's been doing it throughout this preseason. I don't know if it's possible for a punter to cross over a punt returner, but I think you get to see that in this game where the punt returner thought it was going this way and Dixon got it off the foot in a certain way and then twisted him back that way, caused the punt returner to just fall over and the ball went into the end zone, but it was kind of a little bit of a funny moment. We got worried last week with Jason Myers and missing another extra point. That's 2 in the preseason, but you know what he has done? Made every single one of his field goals, and all 3 of the field goals that he made today were all from a good distance out. So very impressive on his part and what we saw from him, and good to see on Myers as we're hoping, all of us are, that we're getting the Pro Bowl year Myers, that we're getting the good Myers. He's due for the good season. That's how this goes with him. You can track it for a 10-year period with this guy, I'm telling you. So no ultimately conclusions taken by this game from the Seahawks team, and to think that this means we're going to Super Bowl, or you can just go ahead and buy your plane ticket now and book that hotel room. But you do feel really good about this team, and you do feel closer and closer to believing that this team can be a team to push for the playoffs, even in this first year under Mike Macdonald, because the talent is so good, and these coaches are so right, that you made such good hires. That these aren't going to be question marks. These guys are going to look back and go, man, that was a smart hire. That was a good pairing with the talent that you had in place, and it's take off from there. It's a rocket ship to space from there. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.